Welcome back. We're with the Field Secretary of the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State, Kevin Annett. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi, Alfred. It's good to be back.
Well, yesterday was quite a day in that the ITCCS issued an order to stand down on the first anniversary of the conviction of both the UK Crown, Elizabeth Windsor, and the papacy. Could you tell us about that?
Well, I mean, it was the inevitable result when you convict a criminal institution. Obviously, you're going to tell their agents and officers that to continue to hold an allegiance to these bodies or individuals is a crime. And so what the presiding magistrates who were actually responsible for this case a year ago, they issued orders that we posted online at itccs.org. These orders, which actually tell a couple of things. They say that they're directed to the officers and agents of not only the Crown of England, but the Vatican, the entire Roman Catholic Church. And it says basically that they are freed from their oath of office, their oath of allegiance, because the authority of those offices are now null and void under international law, under customary law that says you cannot operate at the behest of criminals. And it says you not only have to stand down, but if you continue to obey the orders and act under the authority of these bodies, you're committing a crime and you yourself can be subject to arrest and trial. So this is directed, I mean, it's mind-boggling when you think about it, Alfred. It's directed at every policeman, every civil servant, every politician, judge, lawyer in Canada, in England, any Commonwealth country, and anywhere in the Roman Catholic world. So this has been especially made pertinent by the fact that the news that came out where Elizabeth Windsor is actually colluding with the Vatican in imposing this criminal policy called crimen solicitanis, now on Anglican clergy as well. They're obligated, every citizen of the Commonwealth is obligated to refrain from any oath of office or allegiance to the Crown anymore. And so this is very exciting. It means that when people run off these documents, they are going to be served on all these officials. And it creates an enormous power vacuum, and people now have to establish their own bona fide systems of authority. So, for example, in Canada, obviously there needs to be a new constitutional arrangement free of the Crown, a republic. There needs to be a new government constituted because the present one doesn't have that authority. So all of this is really historic and quite amazing. It gives survivors of these crimes a practical weapon on the ground as well to be using. And we're just very excited that this step has been made.
Right. Now, could you go through again what it was when Elizabeth Windsor colluded with the Vatican to bring in crimen solicitatis as part of the Anglican Church?
Right. Well, it was known now colloquially as the Hollywood Agreement, because on September 16th, 2010, Pope Benedict, the former pope who stepped down, he was the first pope in history to visit England, and there was an enormous protest. As a matter of fact, I was there. It was quite a day in the streets of London. There was over 20,000 people protesting the pope's presence. Well, he hurried off to Edinburgh, sat down with Elizabeth Windsor, and apparently, and this is from a source in the Vatican as well as the English Parliament, they confirmed that this occurred. The terms of agreement are being worked out whereby the Church of England is to be reabsorbed into the Roman Catholic Church. And Elizabeth Windsor is negotiating that. Now, that in itself is a violation of her basic coronation oath, which says she'll defend the Protestant faith and she will defend her citizens, or they like to call subjects. So not only is that's another reason why people should not be obeying or going along with this authority, because she's involved in reneging her oath of office, in effect. And the other thing that occurred, which makes it relevant to the present Pope, is that Francis did a house cleaning, of course, to get rid of any evidence of this after he came in. Now, that's not only why Ratzinger stepped down, one of the reasons, but the cardinal who brokered this whole deal of the Church of England coming back to Rome, Tarcisio Bertone, he also resigned in August 31st. Actually, just again, a few weeks after the Catholic Church was declared a transnational criminal body under UN law, he steps down. So Bergoglio, Pope Francis, wanted to sever any connection between this deal because even though it's in place, he doesn't want people to be aware of it because it goes against his whole kind of nice guy reform image that they're desperately cultivating these days.
So what you're saying is that the effect of this ruling is to disestablish the UK monarchy because it belongs to a criminal family, the
Exactly.
Windsors, and on the other hand, to disestablish the papacy because it belongs to an international criminal organization.
Exactly.
And so that those two bodies can no longer be public bodies holding public trust.
Absolutely.
That's what you're saying.
Absolutely. They have no political legitimacy or legal authority. They should not be receiving tax money, definitely. And the governments included in that are engaged in colluding with associating with convicted criminal bodies. These are not just, this isn't just hot air. They were convicted on the basis of solid evidence, eyewitnesses. This thing that Elizabeth Windsor's done is mind-boggling. It says that every Anglican clergy, as well as the Catholic Church now, have to actively protect child rapists. And, that means that if people know anything about the policy crimen solicitanis, it says that when a child is raped, the police are not to be told, and if you talk about it, you're excommunicated or even imprisoned under church law now. So, people cannot, legally or morally cooperate with that kind of regime.
Now, to take this further, there's an upcoming meeting between Elizabeth Windsor as queen, or attempting to be queen, and Bergoglio, Pope Francis, in Rome on April 3rd, 2014. Do you take this as a continuation of this criminal conspiracy?
Absolutely, because if the Queen wasn't involved in that conspiracy, why would she be, why would she be going to Rome? This is very important because they will be negotiating the terms of the readmission of the Church of England into the Catholic Church. They're meeting, Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth are meeting with President Napolitano first on that day, on April 3rd, and then they're going to be sitting down in the Vatican for a nice little chat with Pope Francis. Now, it comes at a good time for us because a few days before that, on March 31st, we will be convening in Brussels the opening hearings into the second major case before the International Common Law Court of Justice. And that will be into global child trafficking with Jorge Bergoglio, Pope Francis, named as the chief defendant. So there will be people in Rome on April 3rd to serve public summonses on Jorge Bergoglio in the name of that court. There will be sheriffs appointed by the court to do that. And also to enforce the standing year-old citizen arrest warrant on Elizabeth Windsor. And that will be attempted. One of the documents that was released, again, which you can see at ITCCS.org, is actually a statement by the presiding judges which authorizes the creation of special court sheriffs and common law peace officers to enforce these warrants. So in effect, we're filling the power vacuum created by the stand-down order with citizen sheriffs and peace officers. So that's our power, the power of people taking this into their own hands and saying we're not going to tolerate anymore, child traffickers in major positions of power, regardless of what kind of protection they have. They are illegitimate and now disestablished.
Now, one of the witnesses that will be coming forth at the trial commencing in Brussels on March 31st is reportedly a former member of the Argentine government during the junta times, who has direct evidence to give of Jorge Bergoglio then personal involvement in child trafficking. Is that the case?
That's right. He's apparently a civil servant who has first-hand experience of sitting in on meetings where Jorge Bergoglio agreed to use Catholic orphanages in Buenos Aires and other places as a place whereby children of political prisoners were kidnapped and trafficked. Now, this is not new. The Catholic Church did it in Spain under Franco. Over 500,000 children were kidnapped that way. Now, don't forget, kidnapping children in that way, as we know from the Indian boarding schools in Canada, is an act of genocide. It's defined in point 5 under the UN Convention on Genocide. They define that the transporting of children out of their biological families by another group, that's genocide. Jorge Bergoglio was personally involved in that act. Now, this was coming from a former civil servant who's now living under protection in Spain, and we hope to be having him give his deposition as well as witnesses from other countries.
Now, so that the sheriffs and the proceedings that are happening on April 3rd in Rome against Elizabeth Windsor and Bergoglio, Pope Francis, those will be happening under the direct authority of the trial that will have started on March 31st in Brussels.
Absolutely. It isn't a random protest. It'll be under that direct authority. So if anyone stops, if the Italian police or the Vatican security try to stop and arrest anyone, they are involved in obstructing justice. They themselves can be tried and arrested for not just protecting known or suspected criminals, but actually obstructing justice. And in this case, when you're obstructing an investigation into genocide and human trafficking, that's a pretty serious offense. And so we have to use that as a basis to get many other groups, including other governments, to recognize what we're doing and to offer their support, which we've begun to get, actually, over this whole issue.
Now, as I understand it, it was on the basis of judgments, evidence and judgments that the ITCCS obtained that were then presented to governments that Ratzinger, Pope Benedict, stepped down, among other reasons. Is that correct?
That's right. There was the government in 2 countries in Europe, actually, on the basis of the evidence we had accumulated for a number of years, including letters that American lawyers had put forward to the International Criminal Court, showing that Joseph Ratzinger had signed letters to American bishops and bishops in Ireland as well, ordering them to not cooperate with the police in their investigation of known child rapists operating in the Catholic Church. At a fairly senior level, we're talking bishops and in one case a cardinal in Ireland, Sean Brady. So this was in the guy's own handwriting, and it was on the basis of that evidence that these 2 countries in Europe said definitely we will issue or apply for an arrest warrant if this pope is on our territory. And it was only 6 days after that Ratzinger stepped down, after that diplomatic note was received by the Secretary of State's office. And of course, Secretary of State stepped down too after that. So I mean, it was pretty, quite an admission of guilt on their part.
Now, in Brussels, of course, is in Belgium, and the Brussels Parliament, notably a number of the members of Parliament there, have recently exposed a vast pedophile network reaching up into the royal family, where I believe one of your witnesses exposed the former King of Belgium as a pedophile, and the names of the pedophile network in Belgium, starting with the former Prime Minister, former ministers, leading lawyers, leading bankers, all leading families in Belgium have been exposed as pedophiles. Do you expect that this is part of the reason why these charges are taken so seriously in Brussels?
Absolutely. And, we're talking Prince Bernhard, the grandfather of the present King of Holland, Louis Mountbatten, the uncle of the Prince Philip, Cardinal Alfrink, who was a senior Catholic cardinal, Joseph Ratzinger himself. Now, these were people all named by Toos Nieuwenhuis, who was, as a child in the 1960s, she witnessed the ritual torture, rape, and killing, and even the cannibalistic consumption of these children after they died at these sick rituals in Chateau in France. And she was also taken to Carnarvon Castle in Wales where this stuff was going on. These are international networks, and they involve very prominent people in all of these fields. So I mean, it's there. I mean, it can't be denied. And I think the response of these people in power and their avoidance and resignations are clear indications. Don't forget, they never refuted any of this evidence. In our first common law court case about genocide in Canada, of the 30 defendants, not one of them, including Elizabeth Windsor, Joseph Ratzinger, Stephen Harper, the Prime Minister of Canada, not one of them ever denied or refuted statements that were made publicly that they were involved in these acts or covering up these criminal acts.
Now, do you think that, given the evidence that you've seen, that these pedophile networks that were recently exposed in Belgium at the Belgian Parliament, in where the Brussels trial will be, would you think that they're interconnected with the pedophile networks that are the basis of the conviction of Elizabeth Windsor, Pope Ratzinger, and now the trial of Pope Francis as representative of the Vatican?
Oh, very much. I mean, it's all connected. I think that's what's clear, Alfred, that, you know, we are exposing something very hideous and very well organized. And the proof is simply in the level of it. I mean, when the one American bishop ever to go to jail for enforcing criminal solicitudinous for the Vatican policy protecting child-raping priests, William Lynn, it was shown that in the Philadelphia diocese alone of the Catholic Church, a quarter of the priests were involved in active child trafficking. That's hundreds of priests in that one area alone. This is massive, and not surprisingly, William Lynn is now out of jail. He only served about 6 months, and then he got out. So it's one of another reasons that we have to pursue this route of common law court indictments, because the present courts, including the International Criminal Court, are colluding directly with the Vatican. The ICC refused to act on 22,000 pieces of evidence linking Joseph Ratzinger to the suppression of any investigation into child rape within the Catholic Church. So the existing bodies are part of the problem, and this is why we are looking to the common law.
Yes. Now, so that it would seem then from the weight of the evidence so far that there is an international criminal network which includes the Vatican, which includes the monarchies, but which includes the Catholic Church worldwide, but also which may include institutions such as the governments, the U.S. government, the Canadian government, and other institutions, some intelligence agencies, and that pedophilia is how they maintain power.
Definitely. As a matter of fact, the CIA has admitted that they use brothels in Thailand, using young child prostitutes as young as 8. They use it as a form of a system for political blackmail when they bring over U.S. senators and congressmen, and they can use that to blackmail them. They admitted that in a newspaper, Rock Creek Free Press in Washington, D.C., 4 years ago, that they'd been doing this since the 1970s. It's amazing how much is admitted and how much evidence is out there. But, you know, the basic fact is when you look at a place like Canada, where all of our thoroughly documented evidence about the genocide against Native people shows church and state cooperated right from the very beginning. It was tag team. It still is a tag team operation. So we should never speak about these institutions as separate. They were really, you know, behind different masks. It's the same beast.
Now, what remedy will the prosecutors be seeking against Pope Francis and the other defendants in the March 31st trial?
Well, the precedent from the first case is the prosecution asked for maximum sentence under international law for crimes against humanity. The verdict that the 58 citizen jurors brought in against these people in the first case was 25 years imprisonment without chance of parole, a loss of all property and authority. In other words, they're deposed. And I'm sure they'll be seeking a very similar indictment against Pope Francis.
So that with the enforcement of these sentences would come the functional disenfranchisement of the Windsor family and of the papacy.
Well, don't forget that they're already disestablished.
Yes.
This would reinforce that, and it would say,
reinforce it,
and
yes.
in the case of Pope Francis, as a man, he would be arrested and put in prison, as he should be. But definitely, these institutions are already disestablished. So anyone who gives money to the church or takes part in any way is cooperating with a criminal body.
Now, how do you account for, there's that popular song, "On the Cover of the Rolling Stone." So here you have people like Jan Wenner and those who finance Rolling Stone, who I happen to know personally just from school connections going back decades. How do you account for them putting Pope Francis heading up a worldwide criminal network on the cover of the Rolling Stone? What's that all about?
It's about big money, Alfred.
Well, right. But isn't the music industry a satanic industry?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of evidence from the MKUltra CIA mind control post-war program, which the Vatican was heavily involved in, using Nazi psychiatrists brought out through the Dominican rat lines, through San Marco Monastery in Rome. All these different webs, again, leading to Rome. Their whole focus was on using music and so-called stars, people with public image, as a way to, program people and that's been documented well over the years. But no, definitely. I mean, it's why are they doing it? Yeah, it's for that reason. Definitely, there is that link. But also, I mean, when you've got billions of dollars at your disposal, you can buy any kind of media image you want, and I mean that's part of it for sure.
Yeah. So, 2014 really seems to be the beginnings of a breakthrough year. Could you talk about that? The ITCCS has been at this for quite a while. How do you see these breakthroughs eventuating and coming?
A very gut intuitive level, I'm feeling the whole thing is coming down as we speak. And people often get concerned, especially since some of our members have been thrown in jail recently. We got them out after a few days, but like David Compan in England, who was put in a mental hospital. I mean, these things they do to try to evoke fear in us, it doesn't work anymore, because I very strongly believe that the people within the institutions at that high level are like rats getting off a sinking ship. They are concerned about their own hides. They are bailing out of the system. And, if you go into any Canadian court now, you'll notice that there are no Canadian flags left. These are just private commercial courts. The system is not operating. And that's another reason we need to bring in other things to replace them, going back to our common law traditions. Empowering the citizenry, and this is what it's all about. There isn't going to be a new age ushered in unless people make it happen. And people have to take personal responsibility for all of this. And frankly, I'm seeing that all over, Alfred. In all the journeys I do, I'm seeing people losing their fear and stepping up to the plate a lot more. The problem is they have to get over their mental conditioning that there's some kind of superstar leading this whole thing. I often get emails, "Keep going, Kevin, we're all behind you." Well, I don't want you behind me. I want you alongside me. I want you out there in the front, So maybe that's my message to everybody today.
Good. Well, yeah. So we've come to that point. Could you sort of, as a final thought, take that message and kind of roll it out a bit for people?
Well, I mean, we have examples already of people like Steve Finney in Kitchener, Ontario. Now, Steve and his wife Amy, just this ordinary couple, not educated, unemployed couple, ordinary folks there. Their daughter Amber had been grabbed. They said, "No, we don't want to cooperate with this. As parents, we want our child back." But then they came across our site about a year ago, and they said, "Well, the Crown doesn't even have authority anymore." And so they had the courage to walk into the courtroom and say to that judge exactly that. "You should stand down. You've taken an oath of allegiance to a convicted felon who stole 10 native children and they were never seen again. You know, Elizabeth Windsor is guilty of that personally. So stand down, they said to the judge, and the judge did. I mean, literally, he backed off from their case. They turned the heat up on Steve, but he wouldn't back down either. And eventually, now I talked to Steve the other day on the phone, he said the police in Kitchener give him a wide berth because they know that he knows the law, he knows his rights, and they can't intimidate him anymore. If we can replicate that, even 10 people like Steve, the whole system just shakes. And we need, all of us need to take that example and lose our fear and say it's time now to go on the offensive. We're at war. I mean, these institutions have been waging war against us for centuries. A war of destruction. Look at the numbers of children who are now being trafficked through the systems. Millions of them. The war against planet Earth and our liberties. I mean, we are now experiencing a shift where people are taking the offensive against, you know, these criminal bodies, and I'm feeling really good about it, that I'm still alive to see it, frankly.
Good. So how can people educate themselves about what the tribunal's doing, what their rights are, and how can they get in contact?
Well, ITCCS.org. Read it up and share it. There's a new website we have on the Common Law Court, well, ICLCJ.com, for the International Common Law Court of Justice, ICLCJ.com. We regularly post all our material there, but I would say as well to contact me, because I'm in a couple of weeks going again through Canada and the US and then over to Europe. I'll be there for the opening case against Pope Francis on March 31st, and then all the actions in Rome and other places during April. Just write to me, Hidden From History 1, like number 1, Hidden From History 1 at gmail.com, and take action in your neighborhood. Go to our Common Law Court Training Manual, which is posted up at itccs.org, and get it going in your community. We've got court cases forming on the chemtrails. We're working with farmers in South Dakota who are fighting fraudulent foreclosures of their, because of these fraudulent mortgages that the courts have been colluding to bring in. So the sky's the limit with these issues, and it's all within our power to do this. So I would just say, help us and help yourselves, help our future and our children by doing this.
Well, thank you, Kevin, and we appreciate your taking your time to be with us again today, and we look forward to your being with us in the future as events develop.
Thanks, as always, Alfred.
Thank you.